Okay, so welcome to the session. My name is Victor. So if you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, or if you have questions, you can ask. So this is, I think, the 7th or 8th series in the business analysis training. We've gone through quite a lot of sessions, and now we're in 4.5, which is manage stakeholder collaboration. Now, we understand the role of a BA is to provide value. The role of a BA is to make sure that we can deliver something that makes sense to our stakeholders, something that makes sense, and also help our team to be able to deliver their job. Because a BA is going to be that bridge between stakeholders and technical team members. Now, we're just trying to do collaboration. Now, 4.5 is manage stakeholder collaboration. Purpose. The purpose of managed stakeholder collaboration is to encourage stakeholders to work towards a common goal. Because there are some projects that you're going to have 2, 3, 4 stakeholders. We've talked about stakeholders very, very exhaustively. We say stakeholders are those that are going to be impacted, influenced, interested, or that have a say. It can be a small say, it can be a high say. It can be those that have influence, it can be those that can make or mar the project. So you want to make sure that everybody is working towards the same goal. Now, business analysis work lends itself to many collaboration opportunities between groups and stakeholders. Now, stakeholders hold various degrees of influence and authority. So some people have very small authority, some people have high authority, some people can make a project not work. Now, they have varying degrees of authorities over approval of work products. Same thing for needs, constraints, and assumptions. So you can be making some assumptions, but that assumption is not in line with a chief stakeholder, someone that have a higher authority. Because if you make an assumption by what the other stakeholders say they want for this solution, and a person of higher influence and authority says, that is not what I need. So you see that you're going to have issues, and that is not what we want. So if we need to manage stakeholder collaboration, what do we need? We need the 2 approaches. That is the stakeholder engagement approach and our business analysis formation approach. Now, what are the different elements? We need some agreements and commitments. We need to also try and see if we can monitor these stakeholders' engagement. And of course, while you're trying to do this monitoring, you need to also do some documentation. Then, of course, you need to now do collaboration. Now, what are some of the guides and tools you can use for this? What are some of the guides and tools you can use for this? So, business analysis approach, business objectives, future state description. Where are you going to? Where are you going to? We tell how you are going to also manage collaboration for the stakeholders, right? Your recommended actions play a role also. And of course, your risk analysis. If you've done your risk analysis, what are your risks? What are the threats to this project? What are the threats to you delivering this value? It can be you want to remodel a pharmacy store. It can be that you want to develop a new software. What are the risks? Then how do you intend to mitigate? How do you intend to maybe do insurance or transfer the risks, outsource that project to somebody else? What are the kind of risks that you intend to take care of, and how do you intend to make sure that it doesn't affect the overall success of the project? Now, one way you can manage stakeholder collaboration is to use collaboration games, right? You could use lessons learned. What have you learned from previous projects? You need to also do some risk analysis and management. You need to have your stakeholders list. If you don't have your list of stakeholders, it's going to be difficult for you to make sure you carry everybody along. Of course, we've talked about mind mapping, or stakeholder map, and personnel. So stakeholder engagement. So willingness from stakeholders to engage in business analysis activities and interact with business analysts when necessary. If you don't have an engagement, if you don't have a commitment, it's going to be difficult. Like I always say, you don't want to start a project, or you don't want to try to deliver value to your organization, and one of the first things you want to do is just take up the job, go deliver the job, and say, I am done, you want to hand over. It's going to be a disaster. What you want to do is to make sure that there's sufficient collaboration. You don't work in isolation. Sorry. You don't work with just your team. You want to make sure that your stakeholders are properly engaged. Once they are willing and they engage, it will help you to properly interact and do your responsibilities. Anybody have any questions? And let's answer some questions also. Can we answer number 1 and number 2? Number 1, number 2, what is the output of confirmed elicitation results? Oluchi, you were here, you were around yesterday, so you can help us answer. What is the output of confirmed elicitation reports? 10 seconds.
I don't know. Let me try. Is it D? I don't know. I wasn't here.
Okay,
I forgot I muted my.
You were not in yesterday's class. So the answer is elicitation results confirmed, right? So when you want to confirm elicitation report results, at that time, it is unconfirmed. Like the series of notes I shared before we started this Zoom call, that you have requirements, you've elicited some things. Now, some of those things are not confirmed yet until stakeholders can do what? Confirm it. So your answer is actually C, right? So it is elicitation results confirmed. When you want to confirm the elicitation, at the end of the day, at the output, you're going to have what? That elicitation result confirmed. So that is only when you can now move to other sessions of the project. Number 2, what do you document? When do you document elicitation results? So immediately after conducting elicitation activities, as soon as the business has been defined, at the beginning of a project, after selecting a business analysis approach. So you normally do that after conducting elicitation activities. So elicitation activities are activities that help you to actually collect requirements, get details of what the project is about, right? How do you do that? What are some of the tools and techniques? You're going to be using brainstorming, you're going to be using mind mapping, you're going to be maybe subject matter experts, right? Implementation experts. So these are the kind of tools and techniques you can use to actually get details about what your project is about. Okay, so let's look at requirement lifecycle management. What we're trying to say is that as we try to elicit requirements, those our requirements are going to have a kind of life cycle. Not all of them are going to make it to the end of the project. If a lady wants to get married, he's going to say, I want a tall guy, I want a handsome guy, I want chocolates guy, or no, I want a fair guy, I want somebody that has like at least minimum $10 million in his account. I want somebody that drives a Ferrari. What is she doing? She's trying to list out some requirements, right? And in trying to list those requirements, she's going to be doing elicitation. She can be eliciting from her friends. Please, can you list me things that is going to make sure it's going to help me have a good marriage, right? Help me list things that's going to make me enjoy my kids, live happily ever after. Now, but I can bet you that those requirements that she had elicited down, they have a life cycle. Now, while growing up, I was speaking to some of my students. Somebody said, I'm going to be a medical doctor, I'm going to be an engineer, I'm going to be an aircraft. Okay. one after the other. Also, what did you want to do while growing up? Let's say under 10 years.
I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay, good. Next person.
Pilot.
Wow. That's nice. Okay, now that is a requirement you have for a value that you want for your life, right? No, business analysis is about value, true of us. We want to deliver change. We want to we want to consume value. We now need an analyst to help us achieve that. If business is not working well, who do they need? An analyst. So the analyst can look at what is happening, define a future state, and now look at, elicit the requirements, collaborate, now plan all the things that needs to be done. Maybe bring in a project manager, decide what and what needs to be done as a solution, implement the solutions, and now evaluate the solutions. Those are the components of the 6 knowledge area, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Business analysis.
Now, for that lady, that young girl, while growing up, I want to be a pilot. That young girl is growing up, I want to be a doctor. Those are requirements, but those requirements have life cycle. Or that young lady that is saying, oh, I want to marry the guy, he's going to be tall, he's going to be huge, he's going to have 6 packs, he's going to have a Ferrari, he's going to have $10 million. Those are requirements. Or somebody says, okay, I want to go to school. Which school do you want to go to? I want to go to this Ivy League school. I want to go to this school. Those are requirements. Those requirements have life cycle. And when we say life cycle, what do we mean? That it's just like a man that is now in his 80s. Your wishes, they're like this, it's going to come down, go up. You get some things, you don't get some things, you throw away some things, you leave some things, like that. At the end of the day, you now have something final. Are we together? So for every solution you intend to deliver, you typically don't get everything that you have during planning at the end of the day. When you're planning a solution, right, you don't get everything at the end of the day. So if you find a doctor, that someone that wants to become a doctor, he becomes maybe an ophthalmologist or a dietitian or something. Some things go away, some things stay, some things like that. Someone that says he wants to be a pilot, maybe now becomes a mechanic, or now becomes a bicycle repair expert, or now become a lecturer training people on electronics and whatever. So the point is that your requirements are going to change. Here, we are learning as business analysts, how do we not just elicit the requirement, how do we manage the requirements from start to the end of the project? So requirement lifecycle management knowledge area describes the tasks that the business analyst perform in order to manage, maintain requirements, and design information from inception to retirement. How do you do that? Trace requirements. You have to trace them. Then you need to maintain them. You need to prioritize them. Okay. Also, why did you change your mind? Why did you not say, okay, what happened? Why did you not say, oh, I'm not going to be a medical doctor again. Okay, let me try something else. Or what happened?
Some factors that affected the decision.
Come again.
There were some factors that affected the decision.
Okay, good. So some factors, some things are going to play a role in you not saying, if I still need to get a degree, I have to prioritize what I want. Can I get this and move on? Or do I still keep this and stay maybe longer to make sure I can achieve that particular requirement? Because like I said, in delivering solutions, in delivering value, requirements are always going to change. Now, as requirement changes, then approve requirements. So we're saying for this knowledge area, if you want to do requirement lifecycle management, these are some of the tasks you need to be able to do. So it's called TMPAA. TMPAA. Don't forget, our core concepts are change, needs, solutions, stakeholders, value, context. Whatever we're going to be doing, we need to understand that it has to be adapted to the concept that we have for that particular solution we want to deliver. Very, very critical, very, very important. So this keeps reoccurring in all of the knowledge areas. Now, let's look at the very first one, trace requirements. So why do we need to trace requirements? So we need to ensure that requirements and designs at different levels are aligned to each other. At times, you're going to see a client is going to say, okay, please, can we do this? Oh, can we do this? You don't accept everything. You need to make sure that these things are within alignment to the original goals and plans of the project. Because there's some requirements that are going to affect other requirements. If you need to build a cushion, you cannot later on in your requirement and not say you want to have ions. So if you need to have it built with ions from the initial stage, you need to say that. That's going to tell what kind of design we're going to have. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
So the amount of iron you're going to use for that cushion, depending on the type of cushion or your chair or your table, needs to be maintained if you want that kind of design. So if you come in and I say, okay, I want the sides to be iron or whatever, you might have requirements that are not related. That's why your process should actually be requirements by BA, UI UX designs by UI UX designer or product designer, the front end, back end, quality assurance, testing, and launch. But by the time you try to mix it up, you skip one, you skip the BA, skip the UI UX designer, you dash into the front end, you want to start developing the solution. What is going to happen is that you're going to have a lot of disjointed requirements that does not fit. And you can have a failed project. But if you go through the process of engaging a BA first, so it's good to make sure that everything is in sync. Agreements are done, requirements are approved before you now move to design stage. Requirements traceability identifies and documents the lineage of each requirement, including its backward traceability, how each requirement relates to the other requirement, its forward traceability, how this requirement relates to the next requirement, and its relationship to the other requirements. It's just like somebody says, okay, I want to do an e-commerce website. The person later can say, okay, I need a blog website. The point is that, are they related? Can they be fusing together? If the person now says after some time that I also need to make it a video conferencing app, you see, you now have disjointed requirements that does not have trace, that does not have relationship, that is not aligned. To do trace requirements, some of the inputs are your goals, your objectives, your business requirements, the stakeholder requirements, your solution, that solution, what do you want to deliver, your transition requirements. There are some solutions, some value you want to deliver, or some projects you want to do. They are not the end of the game on their own. They are meant to help a company transit from one stage to the other stage. Take, for instance, you can say, okay, I want to have a fuel station. I don't know why fuel station keeps coming to my mind. Maybe one day I'm going to go into oil and gas. You have a fuel station, and that fuel station, you want it to be an integrated oil and gas company. Okay, now, so I'm going to have a fuel station, I'm going to have a kerosene station. I'm going to have a gas station in it. I'm going to have LPG, and I'm going to have a car service center, right? And I'm going to have an auto mechanic workshop. Now, the question is, this value, how do we deliver it? Do we first start with a fuel station, transit into all of those other requirements? But that means that our future requirements, right? Our transition requirements needs to be brought into the initial stage. True or false?
True.
Because we're going somewhere, though we don't have everything, we need to make sure that we account for that. I've gone to a friend's house where it's a full plot of house, full plot of land, and I just came. Of course, I knew when everywhere was just bare. And the second time I was coming, he has built up and he occupied the entire full plot. There was typically no space for a gatehouse. There was no space to park, let's say, 2-3 cars. And it was a very sizable plot of land. What's it called? The sit out, the sitting room, everything was just large. There was no transition requirements. There was no thought of, okay, tomorrow we're going to have a boys' quarters, we're going to have a gatehouse, we're going to have 4 cars, we're going to have like a tower. There was no plan for that. So you didn't think about the transition requirement. You're just only thinking about your immediate goal without thinking about the future goal. Solution components, visuals, business rules, other work products. These are the things that you're going to require in order to try to trace requirements. And of course, designs. Designs may be traced to other requirements, solution components, and other work products. What are the elements? So you need some level of conformity, formality. Then you need relationships. Then you need traceability repository. Traceability repository is just a documentation that tells how each of these elements are traced together. Later on in this training, I'm going to provide a comprehensive elements, tools and techniques, and templates documents so that you can help you to conceptualize most of these things. Now, what are some of the guidelines and tools? So we need domain knowledge. If you don't have domain knowledge, it will be difficult for you to be able to trace requirements, to get out requirements. You need business domain needed in order to trace these requirements. If you're not a software developer, if you've not worked in that field, if you've not learned under someone, it might be difficult for you to trace requirements for a software project. So it takes a lot of learning. It takes a lot of domain knowledge. Domain knowledge, I mean. Then, of course, information management approach. You need to know how to manage information, provide decisions. Then legal regulatory information. I've done projects where from the onset, I'm already telling the clients what the regulatory risks you have for the project, whether you should even go ahead or you shouldn't. But if you don't understand the regulatory framework, like somebody wants to set up an e-commerce site that's going to collect cash from A, B, C, D, the question is, what is possible? Regulation, finance. If it's blockchain, which country are you going to be operating from? How can you move funds? What are the regulations? So for any solution, understanding the regulatory conditions, the legislations that has to be followed for that solution to come to limelight is very crucial. If not, what will happen is that you just get a requirement, you start the project. Once you're almost done, once you want to launch, you now find out that there's a regulation, there's a law that prohibits ABCD. A part of your solution cannot go live. And you've spent time, you've spent man-hour, you've done all of that. Okay, so requirements management tool. So you just need a document kind of stuff to, you can use Word documents, you could use, typically we use Word documents, you can use Trello, you can use any project, you can use any collaboration kind of tool, to list out all the things that needs to be done. The tool may be a simple text document or a dedicated requirements management tool. You just need a documentation. That's why if I'm dealing with clients, I always prefer them to send a detailed Word document. so that I have a repository, I have a database. Don't just call me over the phone and tell me I need a software, or tell me I need a solution, or come and help me analyze the situation and give me like feedback. No, I'll prefer a document. Even if it starts from a phone call, we can proceed to a document, because that document is going to be a reference point, so that tomorrow, once that document starts having its life cycle, we can do some relationship back and forth with respect to that document. The techniques you're going to be using is business rules analysis. Of the business rules, functional decomposition. What is a function? Most times in BA, in project management, we normally say that every solution is going to have, or is going to function in a certain way, is going to have a particular feature. So features and functions are related in that your features are the functionalities you are building to the solution, or the functionality you are building into the software, or into the solution you want to render. So now when we say functional decomposition, we mean that you need to now break all the features down into piecemeal. Like earlier on, I shared with you, I said, you see that one-page document, by the time a comprehensive functional decomposition is being done to that document, you're going to be having like 3-4 pages. And imagine if you give a quotation based on 1 page, compared to if you give a quotation of 4 pages. Telling somebody that you're going to build something based on 1 page is like hoodwinking the person to believe that this is everything about that project. But if the person is wise enough, if the person have domain knowledge expertise, if the person have BA skill set, the person will understand that one of the techniques I need to use to do my job as a BA is to make sure whatever feature I have to decompose it. I have to break it down. I have to research. I have to look at other softwares. I have to look at other applications. How do they do this stuff? I might not be a developer. I might not be, but you need to do, because one of the skill set of a BA is his ability or ability to be able to do research, to see what is done, to see what unique value this client wants to be able to deliver, what solutions this client wants to bring to the table. Because it's only when you have a proper requirement that you cannot translate it to a design, then you cannot start developing the solution. Then, of course, process modeling. Process modeling will tell you how each of the features are connected to each other, right? Process modeling. So at times we use draw.io, we use Magic Draw, we use Visio. Some let's say for e-learning software. So it's just a flow of how the software is going to operate, right? What is going to happen from A to B. In the coming days, I'm going to do off record. I'm going to do some in-house review of some projects so that you understand this stuff, right? Somebody is going to log in. From login, the person is going to sign in. From signing, the person is going to have access to his dashboard. From his dashboard, is going to move to his account. From his account, he can fund his wallet. All of those processes, right, needs to be exhausted. It's only once that is exhausted, then we say we have a proper requirement document. Then, of course, scope modeling, you want to have detail about the project. Then, who are the stakeholders? Who is going to help you do trace requirements? The customer should be involved. Domain subject matter experts should be involved. The end users, at times they should contribute. You see people doing personal audit or personal surveys. They tell you, okay, we're trying to build a software that intends to do so and so. Can you help us fill this form survey to tell us what you think about blah, blah, blah? How many of us have filled or seen that kind of thing before? How many of us have seen such kind of thing before? How many of us, please?
I said, can you repeat what you said?
I said, so how many of us have seen a document that intends to take a survey for users for an intending app?
No, I've not seen it.
Okay, Laura, have you seen?
No, I haven't. I haven't. Sending up. No, I haven't.
Okay, let me look for one. End user survey for developing a new banking software. So you see something like this? The solutions are user-friendly and easy to use. Select. In my opinion, the solution are meeting business objectives. I usually provide information to system managers about. So you can carve out something or work out something before the project starts. End user, right? To gather the best requirements for that project. Then, of course, implementation subject matter experts, the project manager, the sponsor, suppliers, anybody that's going to be involved in giving out some deliverables on the project, then the software testers. All of these people can help us get proper documentation requirements for our projects. What are you going to have at the end of the day as output? So we're going to have our requirements, then at times we're going to have our designs. So in the coming days, next week, we're going to learn how to do simple prototypes, simple UI, UX flows for some projects, kind of do the work of a BA and see what it is. From requirement stage design up to when you're going to now pass that to the front-end, back-end developers. Okay. So we'll go for a short break. Then when we return, we ride on with maintain requirement, because it's very crucial that you want to retain accuracy and consistency throughout and beyond the change during the entire life cycle. Because you don't want the situation whereby, you see, in project management, we call this scope. In BA, we call it requirements. So you don't want to have an issue where your scope is changing. Today, the client says A, the next day, the client says B. The next day, the client says something and says, okay, I want C. The next day, the client says, I need D. You don't want that to happen. Okay, so let's look at maintain requirements. So I said the purpose is to make sure that we retain requirement accuracy, consistency throughout the life cycle of the solution. You don't want to have a situation whereby you're going to be having abrupt changes and you have unrelated requirements. So a requirement that represents an ongoing need must be maintained to ensure that it remains valid over time. Now, because if that changes throughout the life cycle, have you seen there are some projects, somebody says, okay, I want to build something. Okay, I need a change. I have a problem with my business. Or you have a business analyst comes in to make suggestions on what needs to be done, how to have improvement. But at the end of the day, the person now says, you have not solved my problem. Have you seen that kind of thing before?
Yes, sir. I have.
Yes, you've not solved my problem. And the reason why that is possible is that the needs of that business was not maintained. The requirements was not maintained, right, over time. So you ended up doing the minors and you left the majors. You did the little things and left the big things. The big things are the things that when they are solved, they actually meet a solution requirement. So what inputs do you need? You need requirements, you need design. So if you need to maintain requirements, if you don't want issues arising from your solution, what do you need? You need scope. And scope in project management, here we call it requirements. Scope in project management is called scope, or requirements in project management, we call it scope. Scope in business analysis, we call it what? Requirements. So then the next thing is you need your design. So that way you can maintain requirements. So of course, the requirements, the attributes, and the reusing of requirements. There are some requirements that are okay for a particular solution that for ongoing projects or subsequent projects that you can actually still use those requirements, right? One way to maintain those requirements for future projects or for sub-projects or for related projects is to still you reuse the requirements you have for similar related projects. And of course, attributes are going to be like the fine details of the requirement. I need a website that will fetch me $1 million every month. That is a big requirement. Now, sub-requirements are going to be, like in project management, we call it work breakdown structure. So it's going to be what type of website, what are going to be the different types of website. Let's say we want to do a drop shipping website or an affiliate marketing website. Okay, what are the different attributes of the website? So it's going to sell jewelry, it's going to sell perfumes, it's going to sell these. So what are the details of that? So the little items that describes or give you enough decomposition of a requirement is what you call attributes. So this indicates how requirements will be managed for reuse. And of course, because most of the times you can actually get some requirements for some projects, and for subsequent projects you can use them. So what are some of the techniques you're going to be using? So business rules analysis. I'm going to send you, like I said, a detail of the 50 techniques we have in business analysis so that you can start developing competence on how to do each of them. Data flow diagram, data modeling, document analysis, functional decomposition, process modeling, use case and scenarios, user stories. Or I'm going to have a tutorial on the 50 techniques alone, just separate, because in these learnings, we're going to see that the techniques are reoccurring in all of the different techniques reoccurring on all of the different knowledge areas. For instance, in use case and scenarios, so because a requirement, a solution can be used in several ways, right? And in different scenarios that they can be applied. So you learn how to do things like use case diagrams, use case documentation, and all of that. So I'm going to treat that in a separate video altogether. Who are your stakeholders to help you maintain requirements? So you have domain subject experts, you have implementation subject experts, you have operational support, you have regulator. The regulator is from the legal angle. If it's for tech, if it's for fintech, finance, like banking license, regulation, and all of that, then you have tester. What are you going to have as output? You're going to have the requirements that is being maintained and the design that is being maintained. So these designs are what you're going to pass on, and these requirements are what you're going to pass on for further development by the front end or the back end or whoever is going to deploy the solution. Okay, so we have prioritized requirements. So why do you need to prioritize requirements? Relevance. Not everything the client is going to say that he needs to be done, or not everything that you feel that the client is going to need to solve a solution that is going to be worthy of note. So here, after we listed everything, you want to now put some kind of order, some kind of scale of preference. So what do you need to, in order to be able to prioritize requirements? You need requirements. Of course, you also need the design. So what are some of the bases upon which requirements can be prioritized? You can prioritize based on fonts. You can prioritize based on needs. You can prioritize based on urgency of that particular requirement. You can prioritize based on maybe regulation. You might say, okay, I want to start this. Then when we get so license, we can now do the next item. Okay, so that'll be all. We're going to be stopping at 5.3, prioritize requirements. So we're going to later on look at the elements and look at other details. If you have questions, don't forget to ask, and I'm going to reply.